the aging was a little bit of a mess. I think like half the book was past due. Because again, there's hundreds of thousands of customers, and there's only 4 of us. But before we get the reply, we love having the templates set up through Growfin and the outreach strategy.
Welcome to Heroes of AR, powered by Growfin, a thought leadership series that spotlights the unsung champions and their transformational contributions in solving some of the biggest problems in the accounts receivable space. I'm your host, Pradyut Hande, and in this episode, we feature Kratz, Senior Accounts Receivable Manager at Greenhouse. Welcome to a brand new episode of Heroes of AR powered by Growfin. I'm your host, Pradyut Hande, and today I'm joined by a very, very, very special guest. An eternal Growfin champion and personally one of my favorite thought leaders from the accounts receivable universe, Kratz. Senior AR Manager at Greenhouse, which happens to be one of the leading hiring and application tracking software companies. She manages a team of 4 and at a company that handles over $250 million in revenue. Empowered by Growfin's AI-native AR automation platform. Dare I say. Thanks for joining us today, Kellyanne. Always a pleasure interacting with you across forums of all engagement. Still vividly remember our interesting chats back at Sweet World in 2025, where you were part of our very, very well-attended fireside chat with our co-founder and CEO, Arvind. Welcome to Heroes of AR.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to do this. I saw you guys had started this podcast, and I immediately said, when can I join? So thank you for having me.
There we go. I mean, we had a bit of a wait list, but
You guys are busy.
we always,
busy.
we always make space and time for those who have always been like eternal heroes of AR and heroes of Growfin at large. So lots to unpack, lots to unravel. Let's zoom in and zoom out as we go along.
Go for it.
Let's get AR talking, right?
Let's rock and my favorite thing to talk about.
There we go. And Kellyanne, I just wanted to like kick things off here by asking you, like, when you first stepped into the accounts receivable space at or the function at Greenhouse, what actually did the day-to-day operation look like? And when did you realize that this wasn't scalable? Like status quo was not going to work for you?
So I actually have like a really unique story when it comes to my time starting at Greenhouse and starting in accounts receivable there. So I joined Greenhouse January of 2020. So
Okay.
just 2020 alone triggers probably so many people, but I joined 8 to 10 weeks right before the world shut down, right? And obviously at the time nobody knew this. But so I had big plans for the new decade. Those didn't go as well. But at the time when I had joined Greenhouse, I was the first accounts receivable person that was hired dedicated to this function. So prior to this, we had a revenue accountant, a revenue manager, and they kind of, dipped their toe in when they had the chance. One day somebody would do some cash applications, someone would do some collections, this, that, and the other thing, but they didn't have a dedicated resource to do all this. And that's where I came in. So I was hired as their AR specialist. And I was new to the SaaS world. The company I was working for before that mostly sold hardware. So still in the tech space, but just a different side of the same coin type thing. So when I came in, I had all of these things I needed to learn. I needed to learn their business, their aging, all that stuff. But like the aging was a little bit of a mess. I think like half the book was past due, right? So I had a lot of work set out for me because not only was I cleaning up and trying to understand my own role and my responsibilities, but also building processes and procedures as I go, figuring out what the pain points were, figuring out how to fix them, not just in the right now, but in the forever, because I would get things across my desk where I had an issue and I'm like, I know this is going to happen again. So let's just not, tie this one up with a bow and move on. Let's use this as the example. Let's use this as the foundation, and then we can take it and turn it into a process, a procedure, or a new way of doing things. So yeah, so I had a unique time coming on board. It was a good time, but it was stressful. It was a little chaotic, and I knew almost immediately it wasn't going to be scalable, especially at the rate that we were growing as a company. And so, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Dare I say, there was a bit of a silver lining during the pandemic, at least for Greenhouse, with you coming on board as part of their AR function, right? Now, one of the things that we've spoken about in our personal conversations as well, and I learned from you, was the fact that at Greenhouse, very quickly you were able to like essentially achieve a level of customer segmentation where you configured a playbook that encapsulated both enterprise and SMB customers as well. So how did you go about achieving that level of customer segmentation, and what made you draw that specific line per se?
So the way that we at Greenhouse categorize the customers, we do SMB, mid, enterprise. I'm sure a lot of SaaS companies do that as well.
Right.
But I quickly came to realize that you have to interact with each of these segments in a different way. So at my previous job, which again, we mostly sold hardware, everybody was kind of in the same boat, you know? Yes, some orders were 6 digits, some orders were 4 digits, but at the end of the day, the process was kind of very much the same. So when I came into SaaS, I realized that wasn't the case. The relationships are different, the renewals are different, the touch points are different. So many of these things are done differently. And if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure I found out the hard way because I communicated with an ENT customer the way I communicated with SMB. You know, you learn your best lessons through mistakes. That was definitely one of them. And I just kind of quickly realized after a couple of weeks, I was like, oh, this has to be treated a little differently, you know? So just kind of came up with a little bit of a different line of communication, a different outreach procedure, just small things like that that make all the difference. And then also the understanding too that enterprise companies operate differently than SMB and mid.
Right.
Like for example, a lot of our SMB and mid customers, they'll just give us a credit card and they'll be, you know, that'll be it'll be done. With enterprise customers, there's a lot more hoops that they need to jump through. They have to get purchase orders, they have to get the procurement team on board, contracts need to be signed and reviewed and all this stuff. So that net 30 days, that's pretty standard across the industry. It looks a lot different for someone from an enterprise company versus an SMB or a mid. So just kind of setting the expectations and over communicating as much as possible and letting them know what's expected of them, what it's expected of them by was a real game changer for us when it came to that enterprise market.
Awesome. I mean, I'm like spoiled for choice here. I must dive a little deeper because there was a pun that came to me while you were speaking. You went from hardware to software the hard way, right? In some ways. Just curious to know what were the key differences that you very quickly sized up when you made the transition, like from AR hardware to AR software.
So I believe one of the transitions that surprised me the most was the different forms of communication and how I worked with customers. And it might seem silly, but it really revolves around like email and being a little more modern. So at my last company, I was printing out and mailing invoices to customers, like physically putting them in a mailbox. Yeah. And you know, then I came to the software. And, you know, one of my initiatives when I had started at my last company I wanted to get them fully automated to email, you know. And it's for several reasons. Number one, if someone's on the other side of the country or the other side of the globe, it could take 10 of their net 30 days to reach them. That doesn't seem fair, you know. And then two, you actually have no proof that it got there, right? So when I came on board at Greenhouse and everything was digital, everything was already done via email, it was like the best thing ever. I was like, oh my God, thanks so much.
They're flying a rocket ship.
Yeah, basically. But one of my biggest initiatives at my last company was to get everybody you know, transition from paper to electronic. And I did make a huge dent. But obviously I wound up switching companies and positions. So I wasn't able to fully realize my goal. But when I came here at Greenhouse, it was so much easier just to, you know, just to confirm things have been sent or when they were sent. You know, there's a paper trail for everything. And that's one of my favorite things about NetSuite and Growfin. You know, you can see timestamps on everything and not in a like, oh, gotcha type way. I knew you didn't send that, but in just a way to prove that we did what we were supposed to do when we were supposed to do it. And, you know, it just shows a paper trail, you know, it just makes it so much easier for everybody involved. Especially when you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of invoices on a monthly basis. There's no way I'm going to remember what invoice I sent out
That's
on,
true.
April 2nd of last year, but it's all there. So I don't have to worry about it. So that was one of my biggest, thank God moments.
Yeah, I feel those lessons have definitely held you in good stead moving forward, because it's almost as though the way you structured the team, the way you empowered the team at Greenhouse, it's like you live and breathe this motto of one AR, one team, right? And that's something that's like part of your operating philosophy and operating system, if I could call it that. Uh, like it sounds so simple on paper, right? But in reality it's really like far from the truth. But how do you actually like stop cash apps, collections, and disputes from actually becoming separate worlds in this entire ecosystem?
So I love when people ask me about this because sometimes it's like a controversial thing that I do in AR, and I didn't know it until I was like fully dived into it. Because when
Right.
I speak to other leaders in the AR space, they're always very shocked when I talk about this. And a lot of the folks that I met at Sweet World, because going to Sweet World, this was my first time, were very much like, you guys do that and it works, uh, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I do think leadership has a big impact on whether it sinks or swims. But anyway, regardless, this whole like one AR, one team mindset,
Right.
I basically do not segment out my customers to my or sign out my customers to my direct reports. And why do I do
Okay.
that? Because there's a couple of reasons. First off, I like to operate under this assumption because I know that people don't always stay at a company or at a role forever and ever, right? I like to use the
True.
analogy of like winning the lottery. So right now I have
Mm.
several direct reports. If one of them sends me a message tomorrow morning and says, "Hey boss, I won the jackpot last night. Have a good life. I'm going to my private island." I'm gonna congratulate them. Second, I'm gonna say, "Can I come?" And when they say no, I'm gonna be, "Okay, let me get to work." But when I do go into work that day and deliver the news, there won't be any panic. There's not going to be this, oh my God, but they do this and they cover this, and who's going to do this now? And they didn't teach anybody. We don't have to worry about that. And I think the
Right.
same works too with a more realistic idea too. Obviously, I want my team to win the lottery and become very, very rich. But just a couple years ago, I lost my mom very suddenly, and I was out for
Oh,
2 to 3 weeks, and there
right.
was no hole, there weren't a lot of holes that needed to be plugged, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mhm.
things happen, whether good, bad, or indifferent. People pass away, people get sick, people win the lottery and, go on vacation. So I have always liked to operate and run my team in that way, where if we temporarily remove somebody, the whole house of cards doesn't fall down. So
Right.
that being said, the main thing that we do that a lot of AR teams that we don't do that a lot of AR teams do is I
Mhm.
don't divide my books up to, my employees. So like if I have 3 employees, we don't split the alphabet in three. That's
Okay.
not something that we do. I have everybody touch everything, and we have
Mhm.
really good record keeping and note keeping so that at any point anybody can go on to any invoice, any sales order, any account and see what's going on with these folks in real time. So
Right.
anytime somebody has an interaction with a customer, we make a quick note on their account. And it's very brief too. Sometimes it's got, spelled wrong and it's not perfect, but it's really there for us to just know and get a pulse of to what's going on. Perfect
Mhm.
example, I have this one customer that we were having some portal issues with them, right? I was working on it.
Mhm.
Two of my senior direct reports were working on it. One was on vacation, the other, then I'm out at the doctor and this and that, like all these different things. But anytime I can go onto their account and I can see what the latest is that's going on with them, and I can
Mhm.
confidently reply and work with that customer and say like, yeah, I saw that my colleague just did XYZ for you yesterday. I'm going to finish this process for you today. And then we can keep the ball rolling. Because then also too, when customers come to us and they look at us and they see us and they interact with us, they don't see Kellyanne versus Bob versus Jim versus Sally versus, Michelle. They see accounting at Greenhouse. So we
Right.
represent that one team. So when any of my team members represent us, I want them to always have all the information they need so that they can put their best foot forward. Um, but it really just creates this environment where there's no finger pointing. There's no she owns that, he owns this, that's not my job type of information. Everybody really owns and cares about every single process of this journey that we're on, this cash application journey that takes us from billing an invoice to collecting the cash and reconciling the bank accounts and all that stuff. And it's really proven to be great for just a teamwork aesthetic too, because everybody cares about everything and everybody has a hand in everything. Everybody's trained on everything, and it really just makes for a better team, better morale, better environment to work in every single day.
Yeah, I think like great lessons that a lot of other folks who would be tuning into this and part of the larger AR community can pick from. But a lot of that, I believe, has also been enabled, and your entire team has been empowered in many ways with the adoption of technology. And when I say technology, specifically in the AR space, I'm talking about automation and AI, right? So I feel, our journey, like while we've been working together, it's definitely probably also shaped in many ways the way you think as an AR leader. But just want to learn from you, like, how do you personally decide that what are the specific tasks or stages of the entire O2C process that need to definitely be automated, and what do you think should definitely remain, in the realms of a human involved?
Got it. So I think the collections process is the perfect example of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we use Growfin, right? For those listening, they didn't if you already catch on, but obviously we use Growfin.
What?
Um,
I didn't hear that.
okay. So when you conduct your collections and you go through your aging and it's time to reach out, I fully believe in automating that first stage. Those
Okay.
the gentle reminders a couple of days before it's due, the gentle reminders a couple days after it's due, and then any periodic reminder like that afterwards. Once the customer replies, that's when we take over. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes the answer is not always in black and white. Sometimes the answer is they help, something happened with their service, something happened, they couldn't get in touch with their account manager, whatever the situation might be. It's not always black and white. And obviously, when you send a collections email out, the answer that you want is, here's a copy of the remittance. That's best case scenario, like payments attached. But it doesn't always turn out that way because people have to have conversations and things like that. And again, the software that we're selling is sometimes multi-year contracts too. So these folks are just not looking to send a check and be done. They want to make sure that they're investing in the right product, that they're understanding their invoice correctly, they're understanding their contract, their terms correctly. And sometimes the folks who are cutting the checks and making the payments are not the folks that were in the room during the contract negotiation. So they have follow-up questions and things of that nature. So I really do believe, like, as far as the collections example goes, that initial phase of reminders and, past due notifications, that works really well for us with the AI piece inside of Growfin. But then once we get that response back and it's not remittance, we have to take over that conversation from there, and we have to use our judgment as leaders in this AR space to make calls sometimes, make determinations, pass it over to the right person if it's not us. So there's lots of thinking that has to go into that once we get the reply. But before we get the reply, we love having the templates set up through Growfin and the outreach strategy, because it just makes things so much easier. Because again, there's thousands of customers, and there's only 4 of us. So there's only so much that we can do. So
Killian, how many thousands? I would like you to tell us how many thousands of customers, like a ballpark figure.
I think it's 7 at this point.
Oh, that is a lot of customers.
Before
Yeah.
this, yeah.
And you've been a team of 4 for how long now?
We're going on. We became a team of 3 in 4 years ago, and then we added a 4th person about 3 years ago. So 3 years or so, yeah. But my 2 senior team members have been with me coming up on 4 years next month. I'm so proud to have them with me. They're my favorite people. So yeah.
Incredible, incredible. Just goes to show that, like, implementing the right tool to empower your own function can actually, it's not a function of reducing headcount, but it's a function of optimizing, just full-time employees to do the job better, right? And I feel like you feel more in control of what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Kelly, and that brings me to the last couple of questions that I have for you. At least on this episode, I'll always have more questions for you down the line as well. But we are in the throes of audit season, right? And this is something that we can't, shirk our shoulders away, and like, we can't like turn our faces away from. You can't, absolutely can't. Now, it really puts a spotlight on receivables, quality, and controls, right? Now, you, from like an AR leader's perspective, like what becomes supremely critical during this period, in your experience and even interacting with your peers from other industries as well? Like, how can teams actually potentially, prepare to avoid this last minute pressure and chaos that comes while they have to discharge their own duties and still collect with confidence?
So my hot take is that as far as AR goes, it's not a once a year type thing. It's an every day, every week, every month type thing, right? So if you have your cash applied correctly every single day, you're invoicing correctly every single day, you're collecting periodically, you're doing all the things you need to do, those small steps throughout the year, your audit season, as far as AR requests go, should not be chaos. It should be a list of things that need to be pulled, and you compile and you put together and you send back to the auditor. But it shouldn't be, oh my God, what happened here? Oh my God, why is this payment applied there? So I've really found success in the small moments, and like basically with like any goal in life, like small acts of consistency always trump one big
True.
day of, or one big week of progress. Like, perfect example, like if you want to get in shape, lose weight, start running, whatever, you can't sign up for the New York City Marathon next week and be good to go for all 26 point whatever miles. I've never run a marathon myself, but if you start running a little bit every single week, you're going to build up the stamina that you need in order to, run the 5K, then the half marathon, then eventually the marathon. But, and I guess in this analogy, the audit would be the New York City Marathon, right? So, I make sure that at the end of every month, our cash is applied correctly.
I love the marathon analogy, by the way. I just want to point out, because it's never a sprint, right? It's almost like you're preparing for audit season all year round in many ways, right? You get your foundations right. You're not really like sprinting to the finish line in the last month.
Yeah, exactly. So, I really treat just compliance in general as like the long game, as that training for that marathon, and making sure that every single day my junior member, when she does the bank, all the items are accounted for. Every single week, I look through the collections workflow. Did we hit every customer we were supposed to hit that was set out for us this week? If not, what broke, what didn't work, and why, And I actually got an audit request last week from our assistant controller, and it was 12 line items. I actually, it was the end of my day, full transparency. It was the end of my day. He sent it over at like 4:45. And I happened to be like working from the couch at that point, because at the end of the day, you just kind of, I took a nosedive. But at 4:45, I'm working from the couch, and I'm like, oh, I can bang this out real quick, and I got it back to him within 15-20 minutes. And it was just a matter of the most tedious part was saving the PDFs and dragging and dropping them, like, because it was all there. Like, all of the payments were applied where they were supposed to be. It matched the remittances. It matched the dates matched, the dollar amounts matched. Like, everything was just there. And then this wasn't the case in this audit pull, but in the past, when we have had a one or two, one-off or two-off item, there's always notes there. Oh, when you go to pull the audit, this is going to be off because of this. See the attached documentation. Here's the reason why. So, like, it's just like already like wrapped up in a bow, like a nice little Christmas present for you. It really, but I guess, quote me on this. Doing your cash application daily, your collections weekly, everything you need to do, it's a gift to your future self. It's a gift to future audit season, Kellyanne, when, right? Like, you're taking 5 minutes of your day right now. Let's say it's August, October, whatever.
Right.
And you're doing it, and you're doing it right now, so that in February, March, there's no drama. So that's my
Fantastic.
audit hot take. Yeah.
I don't think it's a hot take. It is the hottest take, and what a lot of people should also subscribe to. And I'm sure our audience will also benefit from some of this. But yeah, that is so, like, sometimes it's all about getting the foundations and basics right. That essentially like prop you up for future success, right? Don't worry, I'm gonna quote you on that.
Please.
Okay, cool. Awesome, Kelly. And that brings me to my favorite question of every single, which is essentially like, what would you actually tell another AR leader or another AR practitioner in the industry? Like, what lesson would you tell them? Which is the, like, you don't want them to go through the grind. You want them to learn it the easy way by listening to you.
So I would always say it comes down to your basics, and this kind of piggybacks off my last response
Right.
that I had just said. But like,
Right.
don't focus on the crazy big processes. Focus on the core three. My core three are cash application, collections, and customer communication. Right. Start with Cash App. When your banks are clean, your aging is clean. When your aging is clean, then you can move on to collections. Then you can move on to outreach with customers and stuff like that. But your cash application really is the foundation. Um, think of it like your personal book. You get paid every other Friday. Make sure that money hits your account. Then you can start paying bills. Then you can go grocery shopping. Then you can, go out to dinner with your friends. Like, if you don't have the money in your account where it's supposed to be and when it needs to be there, that's like you're all off balance. So start with your cash application, move on to your collections. Then you can, kind of, I guess the 2 and 3 go hand in hand. But if I were coming into a new space, onto a new team tomorrow, let's say tomorrow's my first day at a new company, that would be the first thing I would do, be review my cash application logs, make sure they look pristine to the penny, good. And then I can confidently say, all right, that's good. Let's move on to the next thing, which would be collections. So yeah. Our aging is our Bible. I know. So you gotta make sure it's up to date. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. But that's my advice.
I think it was a little bit more than 2 cents, but that definitely qualifies you for being a DSO slayer, a real DSO slayer. So thank you so much, Kellyanne. Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this really like special episode of Heroes of VR. It's always great chatting with you. It's always great having you, engage with us at Growfin. And I'm sure that there were more than just a few valuable nuggets of wisdom in this entire conversation that our audience will definitely benefit from and potentially implement. So thank you so much, Kellyanne, for being a part of Heroes of VR.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Love you guys. Love chatting with you
And
so much.
as we say here, right, there are some heroes who wear capes. There are others who ensure that cash flow never gets compromised.
Ooh, I'm putting that on a t-shirt.
You can quote me on that.
I will. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.